Hey everyone, it's time to Nefis and chill, and if you told me 6 months ago, or a year ago, or any time ago, that werewolf tanking was viable, I would have been like, but now with the upcoming Greymoor chapter and expansion, werewolf tanking will now actually be viable for ESO PvE group content. Note, however, it probably still won't be as optimal as non-werewolf tank builds for trials and such, but it's definitely a fun concept to play and theorycraft around with. I expect I'll make at least one werewolf tank build once Greymoor hits the live servers. Let's go over why suddenly werewolf is viable as a tank. The biggest reason, besides the buffs to the werewolf skill line, is the change to the Tormentor set. And this Tormentor set can be found in normal or veteran Banished cells 1 and 2. Pre-Greymoor, the Tormentor set reads as, when you deal damage with a charge ability, you gain X amount of physical and spell resistance while taunting the enemy to you for 15 seconds. Now the Greymoor iteration reads, when you deal direct damage with a charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, you gain 3,642 physical and spell resistance and taunt the enemy to attack you for 15 seconds. And yes, this does apply to the Werewolf's Feral Pounce. This 100% applies to it, which means yes, werewolves can now cast hard taunts, making bosses or trash ads aggro onto you. I tried this out in a couple veteran dungeon runs through Fungal Growler 1. Certainly not a stressful piece of content or a stressful test, but depending on how far you want to take werewolf tanking and how good you are at tanking, it will definitely work for probably all 4-man content right now, both DLC and non-DLC. The playstyle is definitely something one needs to get used to, particularly how you have to cast the Carnage, the Feral Carnage skill or proc after you pounce. But it's very doable, and actually I quite enjoyed it too, for sure. And on the first run through, I did it well without werewolf passives, and this made me drop werewolf form quite a lot, which may simulate perhaps long stretches of time or inability to hit or pounce on things. But with my process of thinking in regards to setting up the werewolf tank, I firmly believe the Necromancer class will probably be the best class for the werewolf tanking due to Necrotic potency, which gives you a ton of ultimate back just in case you can't pounce on somebody or whatever. And the fact that Necromancer is still a solid tanking class, just in case you're caught out werewolf form, adds to this. Now, I don't want to make this into a build video, but basically after one trash pack, you'll easily get the werewolf ult back. And the setup I used was Akaviri Dragon Guard, Swarm Mothers, and Tormentor, obviously. And depending on how much you want to invest into werewolf tanking, you can get the Pack Leader's Bone Broth right here, and this does reduce the werewolf cost of the cost of werewolf ultimate. And then after you transform into a werewolf, you can switch to a tri-stat food like Sugar Skulls or purple tri-stat food, and then go from there. Use tripods. So that's just an idea that you can toy around with. That's just what I kind of came up with. And yeah, that's pretty much it. In terms of a setup for weapon, I think definitely two-hander is a must to have on your werewolf transformation bar because of Crusher enchant. If you really are serious about werewolf tanking, might as well have the Crusher enchantment infused. And yes, this does apply to this does apply during werewolf form, as I can show you here. For example, the Crusher does apply in werewolf form, so there you go. Other than that, there isn't much else to talk about. Tormentor says the biggest change coming to werewolves, and yeah, it's gonna be viable. In terms of the actual skill line itself, we can definitely go over it, because they definitely made it a bit more easier for werewolf tanks next patch. So the ultimate morph we want to go with is Pack Leader. And why Pack Leader? Well, in addition to the base morph giving us maximum stamina by 30%, we also take 10% less damage. That's just free damage mitigation. You also grant yourself and nearby allies minor courage. This means you don't need to slot like Yonakrin for the minor courage. So that's pretty cool that they added that. Gives werewolves even a Werewolf tank group utility in a way. So that's pretty cool to have. While slotted, your stamina recovery is increased by 15%. And that's fine as well. So the ultimate itself, basically all about group utility, group play. But also at the same time, you get free damage mitigation. In terms of stats for this setup, I mean, we have 25,000 physical and spell resistances. But once you take Tormentor into account, the fact that it gives you 3,642 resistances, you're going to be near resistance cap. So resistances is not something to really think about. I know in the past some werewolf builds, particularly for DPS werewolf builds, have Chudan and stuff. But for werewolf tank, you won't need Chudan or anything, even if you don't have a source of major war, major resolve, which is pretty nice. And for Feral Pounce, this is going to be probably the more to go with, due to the fact that it gives you an extra second of the werewolf transformation every time you deal damage after you pounce. And again, it's kind of clunky right now because of the Feral Carnage proccing right after you finish pounce. In a trash pull, as you see in the video on the bottom left, you could do like Feral Pounce, cast Carnage immediately, then pounce on their target, then Carnage, then pounce on the target. It's a bit clunky, but it's definitely still doable. Herstein's Fortitude is going to be probably the morph to go. Instead of gaining Major Berserk, unless you want to off DPS as a Werewolf tank, which you can in the 4 main dungeon, Herstein's Fortitude will give you basically a bit more healing, and of course the portion of the ability that heals you while giving you some stamina recovery is going to be scaled off of your max health. And if you're at full health, you instead restore 3,000 stamina. This is a great way to get stamina back. It's kind of like a DK where you convert an Earth and Heart ability cast, like Igneous Shield, which costs Magicka, into stamina, and it's pretty OP. Like, so as you can see, I'm gonna drain my stam, and then with a Magicka ability, stand back, provided you're at full health. But again, even if you're not at full health, the fact that the heal scales off of your max health, this is going to help you immensely as a tank. And again, this goes into why you can probably just stack health. And this will help with almost any tank class, like Necromancer in particular, which also the healing from Scythe scales off of max health. So it's pretty cool. Deafening Roar. Deafening Roar leaves enemies dazed, applying major fracture and minor maim. This is the downside. It's basically like the Ransack morph of Pierce. Instead of applying both major fracture and major breach, you're only going to be applying major fracture. So, but that doesn't really matter because a mag DPS or a healer can slot elemental drain if need be. If you're in a group with 3 stam DPS, all the more power to you. And minor maim. And what you guys may not realize is Deafening Roar is AoE. So you're applying Major Fracture AoE and Minor Maim AoE. So this is a pretty good tank utility skill, for sure. And while slotted, you gain Major Savagery, which is nice. And also for Herstein's Fortitude, you gain Major Brutality, which is fine as well. And just something free that they also added for Werewolves this patch. And also, one thing to note, Roaring with Deafening Roar will terrify up to 6 enemies. So in the trash pack, 6 things. And it fears them for 4 seconds and sets them off balance for 7 seconds. That off balance is going to be pretty nice to have in the group, regardless of whether you're a werewolf or not. So for your DPS, that's a DPS game. And again, this is on the werewolf tank. So as you can see so far, you're already giving actually more utility than the werewolf used to even give. Howl of Despair. Now, Howl of Despair is kind of just for the synergy. Allies targeting the enemy can activate the Feeding Frenzy synergy, which grants them unlimited uses of Empower for 5 seconds, increasing their light attack damage done by 40%. That's another great group utility to offer. Again, I'm definitely going to make a werewolf tank build next patch. Claws of Life. Claws of Life is a pretty interesting skill. It's not going to be based off of your max health. It's going to be based off of how much damage you're doing. However, you have to note that this is an AoE. So in a trash pack, if you hit things with claws of life, it's gonna give you an immense healing. So that's gonna help you keep you topped off. And with the amount of max health you will have, like for here I have 50,000 health without really building into health. With that amount, you're gonna be pretty much very tanky, along with the free resistances you're gonna get for Tormentor and Werewolf. In terms of the passives, they did change a couple things, so let's go over that. Devour allows you to devour corpses to increase the duration of your werewolf transformation and restore your health. It seems to me on the PTS so far you can actually animation cancel Devour. So during a fight, you can just like tap the synergy button for Devour, but then you move immediately after and you still have the Devour benefit. So that's pretty interesting that they did that. While you are in werewolf form, it increases your movement speed by 30%, increases the stam, your heavy attacks restored by 50%. So this is going to play into the playstyle of werewolf. Once you're out of stam, or if you need to block or roll dodge, which I kind of recommend roll dodging instead of blocking certain heavy attacks, you can just roll dodge. And 50% stamina additional back is like a lot on a heavy attack. I mean, you'll see in the video on the bottom left corner how much it actually gives back. Blood Rage. When you deal damage, the duration of your werewolf transformation is increased by 4 seconds. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. Blood Rage is going to be a critical passive to have. Without this passive, you're going to find it very annoying to try to tank dungeons and stuff in a werewolf form. Blood Moon, kind of pretty much stay the same. Savage Strength, increase your weapon damage by 18%, and this is where we're also getting an additional 10,000 physical and spell resistance from. In addition to Tormentor, in addition to Heavy Armor Set, this is where we're getting it from. Call of the Pack, reduces the cost of remaining your werewolf transformation by 20% for each transformed werewolf or direwolf in your group, including yourself, for up to a maximum of 80%. So this is pretty nice to have, especially as a pack leader. So yeah, there you go guys, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I'm going to share with you guys today, and my thoughts regarding werewolf tanking. Will it be viable next patch? Yes. So I guess get ready to tank dungeons with werewolves if you want to. Will it be optimal? Probably not, but it's still going to be fun to try out for sure. And I can see quite a lot of options you can put in. I mean, you don't have to do Dragon Guard. Swarm Mother is also an option, but at the same time I feel like you kind of need it. So I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Are you excited about tanking on your werewolves? What do you think could be a potential replacement? What are you already theory crafting for the werewolf tank next patch? And thanks for watching guys. See you guys next patch. Stay safe, healthy. Thanks for watching.